Hello again, everybody. I'm here with Judge Executive Candidate, Democrat Jimmy Waters. Jimmy, thank you for being with us this afternoon. Do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hello, my name is Jimmy Waters, Democrat candidate for County Judge Executive, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to being your next County Judge Executive. I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Jimmy, as Judge Executive Candidate, what do you feel is one of the big issues facing our county, and how do you propose to tackle it?
Well, the biggest issue is our budget, and I feel with all my heart that if we get someone like myself in office that can run the county like a business, I think I'm correct in saying this, I'm the only candidate that's ever owned and operated his own business. And when your money's getting low, if you don't stay within your budget, you're going to be out of business fast. And I personally think that's what's happened to our county. The budget is overspent, and we must get a check on it.
And as a businessman, what do you see needs to happen to bring more jobs into the county and also to retain the ones we already have?
Well, of course, tourism is a big thing in McCreary County. And we all know that there's not a whole lot of drawing power to get big factories to come into this county. So what I propose is to start slow, and I've got a logo that I've been using, fly low and move slow, and that's part of my slogan for that. Is if you start off jobs with maybe 5, 10, or even less, you can always grow bigger. And that's my thinking on this. You're not going to get big factories, but you can start small and grow bigger. My personal experience, I had a small engine shop. I started with just a small operation, very successful. A lot of people remember Jimmy's Small Engine Clinic. And I know from experience that's what can happen. You'll start adding employees, or you know it, you'll add 2 employees, later 3. But that's my proposal, to start small and grow large. Thank you.
Of course, McCreary County is facing tough economic times. You touched on the budget. How do you think the county can generate more revenues without, say, increasing taxes or relying on grant funding, which seems to be very popular for candidates to say, I'm going to seek grants? How do you seek of permanently establishing a stronger tax base?
Well, the thing about seeking grants, that's all good and well, but the county has to put up their part of that grant money. So that's where you kind of, have a drawback on the grants. But of course, like I said, tourism is the biggest thing, and we cannot afford to raise taxes. We have our 1% tax, and I think that's something we're going to have, but I'm not in favor of raising taxes at all. But I will never stop looking for more jobs to bring in more industry into McCreary County. I have already written a letter to the governor, and I'm expecting to hear back from him possibly as early as next week. So I'm seeking help. I'm going to start at the top, wherever I have to go, to put McCreary County back in focus with a good budget and prosperity.
And speaking of that 1% tax, the occupational tax, do you agree with how that money is being spent these days, or how would you like to see those funding used?
I think the funding should be put to where it originally started. That was ambulance service, law enforcement. And when you put all your money in the general fund, there's no way in my thinking that you can keep up with where it goes, how much. To me, it just needs to put where we originally voted for the occupational tax. I personally voted for it, but I would not have had I known it was going into the general fund. I just think that's a mistake.
And you mentioned paying part of the law enforcement on that. How involved do you think the fiscal court should be in finding funding for possibly additional law enforcement and presence in the county?
Well, we've got to have law enforcement and emergency medical service in the county, because we all want to feel safe. You can get in these larger cities and you're afraid to even get out in the parking lot. And most of you know what I'm talking about. But here in McCreary County, we want to feel safe, secure, and you must have good law enforcement, good emergency medical service. That must be provided to have a safe community, and we can all feel better and we can prosper from it. Hopefully, like I said, bring in more jobs and get it taken care of.
And this November, the residents of Stearns will be voting on limited alcohol sales. And of course, next year, that could come up countywide. And without putting you on the spot asking whether or not you personally are in favor or against alcohol sales, but in the eventuality that does pass, if that happens, what do you think the revenues that are gained from alcohol sales, how do you propose spending that money if you're in office when that happens?
Well, there was a time that the county had been wet back when, to get liquor is 100 miles away, north or south. The county could have made probably quite a good amount of tax on that. But the way it's wet all around us, I just don't see that much revenue coming in personally. And on the wet dry, I've lived here all of my life. McCreary County has never been dry. It's been sold illegally, but it's never been dry. Don't kid yourself. So I really don't have a problem with the alcohol issue either way, but I don't see a big revenue coming in because people are not going to come from Pulaski County, Corbin, and wherever to buy alcohol here. They have their own. And as far as spending the money, what we would get, I guarantee you I'd spend it wisely. Like I said, I'm not a politician, but I am a businessman, and I know how to run a budget, and I've been told that I could take a penny and stretch it into a nickel. So.
And the final question I have for you today, of course, the closure of the jail 2 years ago has again become a major topic in this election. Of course, we're going to be electing a new jailer, and the jailer will be in charge of transport. And all of the candidates for jailer have talked about the possibility of reopening the jail. What do you see as the judge executive, along with the fiscal court, what role should you all play in helping the jailer in possibly reopening the jail?
Well, I'm strong belief in this part. The jail must be reopened or build one. The county cannot afford. I'm told it costs us $500 the time the arrest is made, by the time they do the transporting, and there's times they can't even find a transport officer. So that keeps your constable, deputy, whoever tied up until they can do that. We must. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I've got some good ideas on opening the old jail, but not at full capacity.
All right, thank you, sir. And here we'll give you a moment or two to speak directly to the voters if there's anything we didn't touch on or anything else you'd like to say.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Jimmy Waters. I'm a candidate for County Judge Executive, and I need your vote and support. And I feel like with my ability to manage the county, with the budget, I will keep the budget in check. I can do a good job. And this is my thing. With a song on my lips and a prayer in my heart, and with Mike Kennedy as my deputy judge, we can move McCreary County forward. There's one thing about it. If we can't help the county, we certainly will not hurt it. Remember, vote for Jimmy Waters, your next McCreary County Judge Executive. Thank you.
Well, Jimmy, thank you for being here this afternoon.
Be here.
Appreciate it. Best of luck to you this fall. And once again, Democrat candidate for Judge Executive Jimmy Waters. And thank you all. And remember to vote on November 4th. Again, everybody, I'm here with Judge Executive candidate Wayne Phillips. Mr. Phillips is a write-in candidate for Judge. Wayne, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Would you take a moment and tell the viewers a little about yourself?
Yes, my name is Wayne Phillips. I'm married to Patsy Lee Bryant Phillips. We have 2 daughters. Both of them reside here in the county. It's one of the reasons that I was looking forward to, them doing well. They made a choice to come back to live in the county, so that concerns me. I'm running as a write-in candidate for the position, and the reason I'm running as a write-in is because I actually had signed up to run in December, or actually it was in January, when the decision was made December. So we signed up, but I had a sister that became gravely ill and spent 5 months in the hospital, so I knew that I could not put the time and effort into the election prior to the primary in May. So as a result of that, I had to withdraw by January the 28th. And during the meantime, while I was talking about running, and people had come up to me and had really expressed a desire to wanted me to run, wanted to vote for me. When I made the decision not to run, I feel like I let a lot of people down. I still had people coming up even after that and telling me that who am I going to vote, asking me who they should vote for. As it currently stands now, I had no one to vote for myself. So when these people came up to me and they would ask me, I don't have anyone to vote for, so why don't you run as a write-in? So that's when I became interested as a write-in. I do respect the political process. I have a twin brother that ran in 3 political races and won all 3 of them. I have a nephew, Othel King, that has been at the courthouse 20 years. So as the family as a whole, we do respect the process. It's just there were some extenuating circumstances that caused a write-in.
Okay. Now, Wayne, we'll start off with a big question here. What do you feel is one of the big problems facing McCreary County, and how would you address it if you were elected?
One of the biggest problems facing McCreary County is your industry. We need jobs. I was so really disappointed last week when I found out that we were losing 12 jobs. We had the potential of picking up to 30 jobs, and yet we were unprepared to do whatever we needed to do to keep that armor shield in the office. Did you just ask for one or just for the top one?
You can go right ahead.
Okay, another thing is the loss of jail. That was another devastating blow to our economy. It was really a slap in our face as far as I think we may be the only county in the state of Kentucky that does not have a jail. I do know that the loss is just overwhelming. The cost that we're spending is draining our budget. And the hardship that it puts on the families of the prisoners is just almost unbearable, because where they'd want to call and check or go by and check on one of their family or one of their friends in jail, now when you're having to drive to different counties, you're not going to be able to do that. I've actually talked to, during this campaign, I've talked to some people that have been in jail, and they're telling me that when they're in another county, that they're just treated like meat, that they're just a number. So obviously, the loss of the jail is huge. The loss of the industry, we need to do whatever we can to get that increased.
Speaking of jobs, what do you think can be done to attract more jobs into the county, but also keep existing ones that we have here, retain those jobs? Okay,
again, back to your armor shield was a loss of 12 jobs. Of course, the prison, I think we lost 16 jobs. With the potential of 30, up to 30 added on that, that's a bigger number. One of the things that we need to look at is the occupational monies that are going to your economic portion of it, economic development. I would need to know where that was going, how that was being spent. 20% is what my understanding is. I really don't know the exact percentage. You'd have to ask, someone up there in the administration now. But I do know that 20% of 800,000 or 20% of $1 million is a lot of monies. A lot of monies. I want to know where that was being spent. I would want to know that, our economic director is out there portraying McCreary County as we have a great workforce. I think the gentleman from Armor Shield that worked with them, one of the comments he had made was the people that we have to work, the work ethics, are good workers. And we have some good things going for us, but the thing that we really need to work on is to sell McCreary County that we have a good workforce. I think that's evident in the fact that if you're, me for example, I enjoy fishing, and I know that when we, on Lake Cumberland and coming back, regardless of the direction that we're going, you're going to meet a string of cars from McCreary County going east, going west, going north, and going south. No matter, so we do have a good workforce that I'm sure that if we have industry here, those people would love to spend more time here at home with their families. They would love to see their kids being raised here and be able to work in McCreary County. And the more industry we have, the better shape McCreary County is going to be in.
Okay. And you touched on the occupational tax, and the portion of that used to be distributed to the park, the ambulance service, but as of last year, it's all going into the general fund. How would you like to see that money that's raised with the occupational tax spent?
Well, first of all, the occupational tax, the voters out there really want us, they want visibility. They want to see where it's going, or they want to see the results of where it is being used. And I do think that when Judge Stevens, in the paper I was reading where he indicated that it was the auditor's choice to put it in there, that it needs to be in there, I really don't know. Obviously, I didn't talk to the auditor. I'm not in a position to know that. But I do know that the public out there wants to see their tax dollars, how they're being spent, and the visibility needs to be out there where we're showing that, that we're putting forth our monies, there's efforts being made to, reap the benefits from it.
And of course, another issue is the collection of the occupational tax. We learned this year that many of the prison workers, or federal employees in all honesty, are not paying their share, and we're not pursuing that. What do you think needs to happen to make this a more equitable tax for the citizens?
Well, what I'm hearing from the people that I talk to is, if John has to pay the tax, Arthur should have to pay the tax, or Will should have to pay the tax, that it's unfair. I don't think there's anybody here, and there's no one that enjoys paying their taxes. We all try to pay our taxes. We want to try to even be opportunistic and do it when we can get a percentage, like the property tax that's coming up. But I will say this: if the people out there, if they're paying their taxes, they're paying this 1 cent. They want to see everybody pay it. And I, myself personally, I think that what needs to be done is need to come up with a letter, some kind of letter from a lawyer showing, that we're going to go after the people who refuse to pay, or won't pay it, or simply live in other counties that are being paid more than our people are being paid, yet they're refusing the tax. So I think that we need to follow that up with some kind of legal action.
Okay. The past 4 years, the administration, a lot of the focus has been on developing tourism in the county, and I'm sure you'd agree that tourism is an important aspect. But what are your thoughts on the future tourism versus economic development?
Well, now, the future, first of all, McCreary County is a beautiful place. For someone that's lived here my entire life, I know we have beauty beyond measure. And certainly, in my eyes, I think that our beauty is comparable to, your East Tennessees, your Gatlinburgs, and so on. We need to work on it. We do need to develop. I would continue any efforts that Judge Stevens has done to enhance our tourism. I would like to see it grow. I would love to see it grow to the point where there would be 2, 3, 4, 5 different things for people to do, and not just one or two things where they're coming in, doing something, leaving. If we can get them in here through a combination of several different areas to be, then that's going to help our industry as far as our gasoline. That's going to give us motels that they'll stay. They're going to come in with their credit cards, and they're going to spend it. As a result of that, what will happen is our county can grow from from those. And I would support any efforts that Ms. Cheney or Doug has started. I would just want to hold everybody accountable to them, and want to see again that they were working, that what they're doing is working, and then we want to look at every opportunity to increase it.
Okay. Now, this November 4th, also, the voters in the Stearns precinct will be voting on whether or not to allow alcohol by the drink sales in the historic district of Stearns. Next year, it's a very good possibility that referendum will be for the McCreary County voters as a whole. Without asking you your position on whether you're pro-wet or pro-dry, but if elected and such a measure does pass it, how do you think the tax revenue from alcohol sales should be used?
Well, first of all, I don't mind going on record as saying that when Wayne Phillips votes for that, it would be a no vote, simply because I'm not going to advocate the sale of alcohol. On the other hand, I do see a benefit from any monies coming into the county. If there's monies that come in specifically from alcohol, and it should be used in certain areas like law enforcement, and to help us with the budget, I suspect that the people that are going to make this decision are aware of the fact that McCreary County has always been wet. We just haven't been wet legally, what it is, and that this is not going to stop or start anybody to drinking. It's merely being opportunistic that if we're going to allow that in downtown Stearns, as you mentioned, then I'm sure there's going to be different festivals and different things that they're going to do to encourage that. I'm really not even for sure where that money is going to go. But should it come into effect next year in the county, and I'm sure again, that's a decision that's up to the tax voters. And if I'm in office, then I can just tell you that even though I would be a no vote, and I would say that if I had the power, the authority to not do it, then it wouldn't happen. But I wouldn't want to include smoking and chewing tobacco and other things. But I don't have that authority. No judge would. That's going to be ultimately up to the voters. And I just know that if elected, and the voters do vote it in Stearns or in McCreary County next year, then I do know that I would make sure that the money was used for law enforcement or something that for litter abatement or something to deal with the alcohol.
And you touched briefly on it, but in lieu of using alcohol tax money to fund law enforcement, currently the fiscal court pays the salaries of 3 deputies, and the sheriff's office and the fiscal court are both running on very tight budgets. But what role do you see yourself in the fiscal court as far as aiding law enforcement in the county?
Well, that's one of the concerns, and I'll go back to our jail problem. Because, again, the people that I talked to, and I unfortunately have not looked at the budget, so my knowledge of that is limited because I have not seen the budget. But I understand that we're at the rate we're going to far exceed what we have allocated for jail last year. This fiscal year, it's going to get down. I see the problem that it's like, well, actually for the people that love to fish, as we all do in the county mostly, it's like we're going away from the banks, and they're dipping water out, and then we realize we've got a hole in the boat. So my advice to anybody would be to get back in toward the bank and let's fix the hole. Well, that hole is an example of the jail. It's really robbing the budget. Again, that's what I'm being told, and that's what I suspect. I merely think that what we need to do is, and I will do this if elected, I will look at all of the monies that are coming in, all of our expenditures that are going out, and try to do whatever I can do to work with the fiscal court to get our jail back. We need our jail back, and thus stop in that hole. Hopefully, good times, our budget wouldn't be so lean. But now, back to your law enforcement, I would certainly want to keep, the 3 deputies. But on the other hand, I fear that should our budget keep getting leaner and leaner and leaner, that somewhere you're going to have to cut spending. And I, would think that at the rate we're going, that's probably an area that's going to be cut. That and some of the other basic needs that I really feel like the fiscal court needs to address. There's needs that McCreary County has that we must keep in place. Your ambulance service, your 911, law enforcement. We must do what we can to provide those. So I'm thinking that, my administration would be, I really want to cut the wasteful spending. And anything that's not a necessity, I would want to cut that, and I've worked on, on what I would do to prepare a budget for next year. But I do know that, once elected, I would, look at the budget, because I understand I have to have at least 35%, so I know it's going to be lean times, and it's not rosy. I've had several people who know me personally just asking, Wayne, why are you wanting to get in this mess? Why would you want to inherit this mess? But again, back to my two daughters that chose to move back or live here in the county. I've got two grandchildren, and when they tell me that I'm not going to vote for either one of the candidates that's running, well, honestly, Greg, I didn't vote for either one of them in the primary, so I was in the same position they were. I wasn't going to vote for either one of them anyway. So now I feel like I need to step up. That I just never had a political campaign myself, but I have helped my nephew Othel. I've helped Blaine and all three of them. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. So I would look at the budget. To answer your question, I would look at the budget, cut the wasteful spending, get back to the necessities. Going to have to say no on a few occasions, on a lot of occasions, until we get our budget back. Let me remind the voters that when my brother left office, in an article I think that was written by Andy Powell, the deputy judge, this administration did begin the fiscal year with a budget surplus, and that budget surplus is gone, and that does concern me.
And now that's my last question. If you just want to take a moment and anything that else that you'd like to add, here's your opportunity.
I appreciate being asked, to come down here. I appreciate your inviting me. I appreciate the station for airing this. This is a very, very important decision that you're going to have to make, and the decision is yours to make. I would ask that you consider all the candidates that are running. Number one, I hope that you do go vote. I certainly hope that you utilize your family. I hope that you utilize your neighbors, your church members. Listen to what we're all saying. If it's really an easy choice for anyone. If you're pleased with the direction that the county is going, then obviously you're going to vote for Doug Stevens. If you want to change in the way we're going, you're going to need to vote for Jimmy Waters or write-in Wayne Phillips. I think that I'm the person to do the job. I've got the experience in transportation. I got the experience with working with 90-something people before at the bus garage as director of transportation. I have a lot of concern of the direction we're going. As I said earlier, I was not happy with the choices out there, and that's what really, really enticed me to run as a write-in. All you would have to do to vote for Wayne Phillips, if you're not pleased with the other two candidates, to vote for Wayne Phillips, all you would have to do is just fill in the blank mark underneath Doug Stevens, Republican, Jimmy Waters, Democrat, and then there's a block write-in. All you would need to do is fill in write-in and then write Wayne Phillips. Again, I would ask that you consider everything that they've said, everything that I've said. Certainly, if you have any questions, I want you to try to contact me. I'm not going to be able to go door to door or meet a lot of people, so therefore I'm needing for you to make that decision and call your neighbors and your families and friends and whoever gets the most votes obviously is going to win it. Right now it's going to be one of us three, so that decision belongs to you. Thank you and God bless you. I will work with our fiscal court to continue these. However, I will not put into the budget any expenses unnecessary, unimportant, or wasteful. For example, I will have the line items so accurate that the county treasurer cannot find $102,000 tucked away somewhere. If it was in the budget somewhere uncommitted, I would have wanted to have looked at that as to give a cost of living for the employees of the county, not the elected officials, for the employees of the county, because as I understand it, this administration has not given a cost of living raise to any of the employees for the last 4 years. And a lot of them that I talked to are telling me that even though they thought they were going to get one 2 months before the election or 1 month before the election, the fact remains they've gone 4 years without a raise. And if this money were really intended to be for raises, or if there's money out there that is for, they could come up with now for raises, then the fiscal court, I mean, it's one of those things that it should have been allocated for the fiscal year, and it should have been enacted in July, not November.
Wayne, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And everybody remember to vote. This is Wayne Phillips, write-in candidate for Judge Executive. Thank you for watching. Hello again, everybody. I'm here with Judge Executive Doug Stevens, who is also the Republican candidate in the November election. Doug, thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. First off, you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Okay. I think most people probably already know who I am, but my name is Doug Stevens. I've been serving as your county judge executive for the past 4 years.
Okay. Now, Judge Stevens, what do you feel is one of the main issues facing the county today?
I mean, obviously, the same one that's been facing the county for a long time is the lack of employment for a lot of our citizens.
Mm-hmm. And what is your plan to develop more jobs in the community, but also to retain the existing jobs we have?
Okay. I mean, obviously, retention of the existing jobs are very important, as well as going out and trying to recruit others. Our small business loan program that we've been successful at getting a new grant from the USDA has helped with a lot of the small business applications. People just starting a small business. I mean, obviously, working with the existing businesses is very important. And I know recently with the Armor Shield leaving the county, that has hurt. Anytime we lose jobs, it's really a bad thing. What a lot of people may not know is we worked with the officials at Armor Shield, as well as the folks that bought them out in Ohio, to try to to provide them opportunity to stay here. They originally took them over and looked at the spec building at Pine Knot, and was trying to work out a deal with them on that, but was unsuccessful in doing that. So it's, again, that's one of those things when a business leaves and you lose those jobs, it does hurt. I am currently working with another company, which is going to provide jobs locally. It's not a done deal, or else I'd be able to announce that, and we'll announce it as soon as I can. But we are continually looking for businesses to locate here, as well as spending a lot of our time trying to improve our infrastructure and try to improve our community, I believe, which is going to be more attractive to people that are looking to locate here.
And as you are more aware than anybody in the community about our budget situation, how tight that budget is, the past 4 years, a lot of your battles in the office have been to gain control of that budget and to cut away some spending. What do you see as means of possibly increasing county revenues without increasing taxes, which I know you're not in favor of, or seeking grants, or which is typically just a one-time thing? Right.
I mean, obviously, the last 4 years we've had the issue of less money actually coming into the county via occupational tax, property taxes, and all prices of everything going up. So we've worked, I think, very effectively at actually growing during a time when our resources are less. And part of that is the fact of the grants that we've applied for and received. We have applied for and received, we've applied for more than this, but we've received over the last 4 years $1.6 million dollars in federal and state grants, which have really helped us do a lot of things. Especially, like the ambulance, the new ambulance that we got was partially funded by a grant, those kind of things. Obviously, getting to directly answering your question, there are several things that I think we need to do. First off, we need to make sure everyone's paying the occupational tax that's supposed to be paying the occupational tax. It's not fair to the people that are paying it for others not to. So that's something that we're going to pursue very aggressively, I should say. I think that there's opportunity for trying to do things that's going to be a user-supported thing rather than just raising taxes. You said, obviously I'm not for raising taxes. I'm like most of our citizens. I think we're taxed abundantly at both federal, state, and local. So look at creative ways of doing that.
Okay. And you touched on part of my next question. So on the occupational tax. Now, the past 2 years, on the advice of Frankfurt, you have taken the occupational tax money directly into the general fund and distributed it as needed. Do you foresee any changes in the future as to some of that money going back to where it was originally allocated, or how you view future spending of the occupational tax?
Right, and that's kind of a difficult question to kind of know how to approach, but I mean, obviously the money, even though it's going directly into the general fund, it is still being budgeted to support those very same things that it was originally intended for. And anyone's willing or able to go to our county website and look at the budget and see, you can compare this year's budget with the previous year's budget and know that we're basically spending about the same thing. That was the advice of the Department for Local Government. When I first went into office, they let me know that we were going to eventually run into problems if we didn't do that, because a lot of people don't understand that if money comes in and you immediately allocate it to those funds, like whether it be economic development or park or the ambulance service or whatever, once those funds are allocated to that, they have to stay there. So in a time when monies are less coming into the county coffers, you may have $100,000 sitting in one fund that's not needed at the moment, and not be able to pay an electric bill that's due, that would keep the park running or that kind of thing. So I believe that it was a creative move when we did that. I mean, not a creative, but it was a necessary move when we did that. And a lot of people think that general fund is a black hole that you can hide a lot of things in. It's not. That money, every penny that comes in and goes out, is just as transparent as it was going to the respective funds.
The past 4 years, one of the main focuses of your administration is development of tourism.
Yes.
Can you speak to what you've done in the past 4 years and where you foresee the future development of the tourism?
Okay. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have differing opinions about tourism. It can never be our only focus in this county, but I think it's a very important one that we don't lose out on. The biggest thing I believe that we've done that's going to really make a major impact on this county is the pursuit of the Stearns Trail Town initiative and the designation there, which should be very soon when that's officially designated. How that's going to benefit us, it doesn't. It draws more attention to what we have. I said 4 years ago, and I'll continue to say, we have a treasure here in this county, and most of the world don't even realize what we have. You have people that come in to walk the trails or ride a bicycle or four-wheeler or horse or whatever, and they come and see what we have here, and they're just very impressed. So that Trail Town initiative will help us to be able to market ourselves to the world, at least to the region.
Now, on November 4th, in addition to the regular election, the voters in the Stearns precinct will be voting on whether or not to allow individual alcohol sales by the Drink and Historic Stearns. A county-wide referendum could come as early as next year. And without putting you on the spot, whether you're for or against the alcohol vote, but in the eventuality that something like that passes, Obviously, there's going to be some tax revenues generated. Where do you foresee that money being spent?
Okay, I mean, obviously, my responsibility, once that were to pass, or if it were to pass, would be to develop a board, an alcohol beverage control board, that oversees and kind of regulates as to what exactly can happen. So that'll be the first step. Those monies, to the best of my research, are only able to be spent in law enforcement and emergency services, and that's where they would be spent.
Okay. And the final question I have before we wrap up is, of course, come January 1st, we'll have a new jailer.
Yes.
And the jail closed 2 years ago as well. All three of the candidates for jailer have spoken about the possibility of reopening the jail, and of course, they will be taking over the majority of the transport duties. When that happens, what role will your office and your fiscal court have in assisting the jailer in possibly pursuing the opening of the jail?
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, when a county has a closed jail, the fiscal court and the judge's office is responsible for developing a transportation plan, hiring the people to make sure that that plan is accomplished, and we will continue to do that. Our hope is that the new jailer, once elected, is going to be willing to work with us, and again, like you said, take the lion's share of that responsibility of day-to-day management of that transportation. I will be very glad to work with the new jailer on doing whatever we can to make sure that the jail gets reopened. I have met with the Department of Corrections within the last couple of weeks, and they are planning on talking to us again in the very near future, looking at what we can do, giving us options so we can move forward.
Okay. And like I said, now we'll give you a moment if you want to address the viewers directly, anything we didn't touch upon or any message you want to get across. Here's your opportunity.
I'm Doug Stevens, currently serving as your county judge executive. 4 years ago, during my campaign, I told the folks, I told you, that I would work very hard at improving our emergency services, small business. I would pursue advancing our tourism industry. I would continue to look for jobs. And 4 years after that fact, I can say that I have done exactly what I said I would do. We have, I think, built our foundation up to the point that I believe we're positioned right now to grow. I believe that we are at a point where that we're more attractive to businesses that are looking to locate here. And that if you choose to re-elect me on November the 4th, I promise that I'll spend the next 4 years doing more of the same with the added promise that I am going to reach out and try to increase our employment opportunity, which again, as I said during my interview, that's one of the main problems we have in this community. Again, I ask for your support. I'm the Republican candidate running for re-election on November 4th. Thank you.
Once again, this is McCreary County Judge Executive Doug Stevens running on the Republican ticket. Doug, again, thank you for coming out this afternoon.
Thank you, Greg.
And I'd like to encourage everybody on November 4th to go out and vote. Thank you very much.